In 1901, a celebrated writer spent days exploring Dartmoor by horse and carriage. He was researching locations for a new story based around a terrifying legend. In the legend, a lord of the manor is pursued across the moor and slaughtered by a horrifying hellhound. We know that the writer was Arthur Conan Doyle, and that the story he was planning became The Hound of the Baskervilles. But the origin of the legend remains a mystery.
We're here today on the platform of Buckfastleigh railway station in Devonshire on the borders of Dartmoor. The reason we're here is that my society is investigating all the locations which are mentioned in The Hound of the Baskervilles, and we think that this is the railway station where Dr. Watson, Dr. Mortimer and Sir Henry Baskerville will have arrived in Devonshire from London.
All these people are engaged in what Holmesians call the game, researching the facts behind the fiction in the adventures of Sherlock Holmes. And it's a serious business.
What we have here today is a gathering of members of the Baskerville Hounds, which is the Dartmoor Sherlock Holmes Society. They're just one society from amongst 650 societies around the world. The largest of those societies is the Japanese Society, having 1,500 members. We have only 650 members in our group, and 55 of those have gathered here today from all over the world to celebrate the centenary of the Hound of the Baskervilles.
So, 100 years on, what is it that still draws people from all over the world on the trail of the Hound of the Baskervilles?
It's got a ghostly hound and just, I think everything you could want in a story is in there.
It's a great tale. It's just a good, cracking, good yarn. And then for somebody like me who lives over on the other side of the Atlantic, it gives you the atmosphere of a place like Dartmoor that we don't have. We don't have a Dartmoor in the midst of North America anyway.
It's a classic that's got all elements of the mystery, the mysticism side of things, and Holmes proving he can overcome even the mystical.
It's just a darn good story.
It's a good mystery itself, I think.
You know, it's the last really gothic story.
Anything that's stood the test of this long of time has got to be a good story, doesn't it?
But it seems that this most enduring of tales owes its creation to the vagaries of the English climate. In the early 1880s, Arthur Conan Doyle had practiced briefly as a doctor in Plymouth. But The Hound of the Baskervilles was written long after he'd left Devon. In fact, the story was conceived on the other side of the country at the Royal Links Hotel in Cromer, Norfolk. Conan Doyle was on a golfing holiday in Cromer with his friend Bertram Fletcher Robinson when bad weather drove them inside to sample the hospitality at the hotel. One of the most popular fireside tales around Cromer concerned a ghostly hound, Black Shuck, who roamed the heathlands and haunted the Cabell family, the local nobility. The presence of a hound legend in Cromer may be pure coincidence, but we do know that something at Cromer prompted Fletcher Robinson to tell his friend about a West Country hound legend, which in turn developed into an idea for a murder mystery. Writing to his mother from the hotel, Conan Doyle declared,
"Fletcher Robinson came here with me, and we're going to do a small book together. The Hound of the Baskervilles. A real creeper."
The two friends resolved to visit Dartmoor to research some locations for this. But the writer never revealed the details of the legend he'd been told. As well as organising outings for the Baskerville Hounds, former squadron leader Philip Weller has made a serious study of those real-life places visited by Conan Doyle.
Arthur Conan Doyle carried out a lot of research into the background of his novels, and The Hound of the Baskervilles was no exception to this. Grimspound is an enclosure from the Bronze Age containing about 24 stone huts. And we know that in the story, Sherlock Holmes came up onto the moor and had temporary residence in one of these stone huts. We know that Arthur Conan Doyle visited this site because there is a description of him coming here from his friend Bertram Fletcher Robinson. They climbed up the hill pretty much the way that tourists do nowadays to visit the huts inside the compound here at Grimspound. And we're pretty certain that this was the actual hut in which the two of them sat to smoke their pipes and to get out of the wind. It's this sort of precise detail that lets us know that Conan Doyle used the real history, the real geography, and the real archaeology of Dartmoor in the story. But when we come to look at the legends, things are rather more complicated.
In the legend which appears in the story, the 17th century lord of the manor, Hugo Baskerville, is slaughtered by a ghostly hound on Dartmoor. And some people believe that the source of this legend can be found at this burnt-out parish church. There is no evidence that Conan Doyle ever came here, but many in Devon are convinced that the real-life inspiration for Hugo Baskerville lies entombed in its graveyard. And intriguingly, he was related to the Cobell family, the nobles haunted by Black Shuck in Cromer.
This is the sepulchre containing the tomb of Richard Cable in the churchyard at Buckfastleigh on the edge of Dartmoor. This man has long been thought by Holmesian enthusiasts to be the originator of the legend which is behind the story of the Hound of the Baskervilles. He lived nearby at Brook Manor, and he was an extremely unpopular man in the district. Partly because he'd been on the wrong side in the Civil War and hadn't suffered as a consequence. Secondly, though, because he owned the mill in the district and he therefore controlled the price of flour in this area. Richard Cable died in 1672, which fits in very nicely with the date of the death of the wicked Hugo Baskerville in the story of the Hound of the Baskervilles, the man who started the legend of the Curse of the Baskervilles. There are various legends told about Richard Cable, the most important of which suggests that on the night he died, black hounds gathered from all over Dartmoor, breathing flames, around his house at Brook Manor. But there are different legends, and one which is very infrequently told suggests that on the night on which he died, each year, the 5th of July, he rises from this tomb and rides a horse down the driveway back to his home at Brook Manor. On this occasion, he's headless. The problem with the hound legends associated with Richard Cable, however, is that they're concerned with packs of hounds. And this is common to most of the legends about hounds on Dartmoor. These are the hounds that belong to the devil, or Dewar as he's known on the moor.
According to Dartmoor legend, Dewar and his wished hounds prowled the moor by night, hunting down the souls of unbaptized babies. The demonic hunter and his pack appear all over the national park. And while Conan Doyle may not have gone to Buckfastleigh, he was familiar with the route between Plymouth and Yelverton to the west. A route which passes within just a few miles of a mysterious site which still bears the Devil's Dartmoor name. In the late spring of 1882, while he was still practicing as a doctor in Plymouth, Conan Doyle walked across the western moor towards Tavistock, an area steeped in legends of devil dogs, wished hounds, and supernatural stalkers.